And now we will have the welcome, by Dr. Vivette Milson-White, who is our head of department, who will do the welcome. Thank you.
Chair Dr. Janice Smith, Mr. Everton Hanam, Secretary General of Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO, JNC UNESCO, Reverend Peter Espute, Dean of Studies, St. Michael's Theological College, Dr. Dion Edwards Carr, Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Education at the University of the West Indies, MONA, Dr. Rotimi Omoshulu, Coordinator of the Philosophy Section, other distinguished guests, other members of the local and wider academic community, university and high school students and teachers, all ladies and gentlemen, good morning to you. On behalf of the Department of Language, Linguistics and Philosophy, of which I am head, I welcome all of you to the celebration of UNESCO World Philosophy Day 2025. I am gratified to see everyone who is here participating in the event, online and here in the multifunctional room of the UWI MONA's main library, at a time when the nation of Jamaica is finding its footing following the passage of Hurricane Melissa. Your presence reminds us of the resilience that has always defined the Jamaican people, the strength to rise, to reflect, and to remain engaged in conversations that shape our shared humanity. As the world focuses today on matters related to artificial intelligence, ethics, and digital responsibility, I am welcoming you into a space in which we are contemplating, as you have heard, the human condition in a changing world. With this theme, you are invited to consider one of the oldest and most enduring philosophical questions. What does it mean to be human now? And our now, 2025, this century. In this century, marked by rapid technological change, climate anxiety and climate racism, pandemics, political fragmentation, economic uncertainty, and intensifying hurricanes, the meaning of being human is being reinvented, redefined, rewritten. And the discipline of philosophy inspires us to examine these changes and challenges and gives us the boldness to ask how we might transcend them. So as I welcome you in this space to consider the theme and grasp connections between philosophy and lived realities, I offer you three thinkers' thoughts. The first one, Israeli historian and philosopher of technology, Yuval Noah Harari, warns that artificial intelligence, surveillance, and automation are transforming what it means to act with freedom, to trust others, and even to understand ourselves. Harari asks whether humans can preserve agency in a world increasingly shaped by algorithms. The second is French philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, who through her examination of the feminine condition reminds that the human condition is not just biological, but is profoundly shaped by culture, history, and power. She argues that oppression, exclusion, and limited possibilities distort the human condition itself. Her message resonates deeply in the Caribbean, where communities continue to struggle against inequality, limited agency, questionable gender norms, and economic barriers, among other challenges. To reflect on the human condition today, we must therefore reflect on whose humanity is recognized and whose is rendered invisible. The third thinker is the French West Indian Frantz Fanon, who teaches us that humans are not passive beings carried by the winds of change. We are agents capable of shaping our world with intention. For Fanon, as it should be for us, the human condition is inseparable from dignity and decolonization. Fanon reminds us that claiming one's voice is part of reclaiming one's humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, the Caribbean human condition is ultimately a story of resilience shaped by histories of struggle that continues to be tested by economic, social, and environmental challenges. Today, climate change and foreign ships threaten our waters and our borders. Migration reshapes our families and communities, and AI is reshaping our workplaces, schools, lives, and livelihoods. World Philosophy Day allows us the space to reflect on these matters and to recognize the importance of such reflection in building societies that are ethical, inclusive, and sustainable. Our presenters are expected to shed some light on how we can better understand this human condition in a changing world. But with the human condition resisting a fixed state, each of us, through our reflections, choices, and actions, contributes to shaping the unfolding story that is the human condition. In this era and in these changing circumstances, I welcome you to ask, what kind of human beings do we want to be, to become? Or should we be or become in this changing world? Guests all, may the presentations and the proceedings of this World Philosophy Day engender the thoughts and actions necessary for navigating a world in which change is inherent. And may we leave certain that philosophy is a good companion as we strive to build societies rooted in justice and shared humanity. So welcome again, everyone, online and face-to-face, to the UNESCO World Philosophy Day 2025 celebrations.
Thank you, Dr. Vivette Milson-White, and thank you for reminding us that we should rise, reflect, and engage as it relates to our theme, the human condition in a changing world. We'll move on to the next aspect of our program. At this point in time, we will be having our greetings, and our greetings will come to you from Dr. Dion Edwards-Kerr, or Dean of Humanities and Education.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning. All right. Thank you very much for inviting me and for allowing me to share some of my own thinking about what philosophy means to us as people, as a faculty, and as a university. And I think Dr. Milson-White has shared what it means as a society and a nation and region facing critical issues that threaten to undermine the way and ways of being of our societies. So this morning, I want to welcome you, welcome all your special guests, and observe all the protocols that were established here in Dr. Milson-White. Welcome to the event. But I particularly want to welcome you to the faculty and identify pretty much my own perspective of how philosophy works within the context of a Faculty of Humanities and Education, and why the Faculty of Humanities and Education. And pretty much, my thought really is that philosophy is ultimately about people. Hence your theme today. But it's ultimately about people and the way we think, the way we lead, and the way we live. But there are many aspects of the faculty itself, the humanities, that links into that. And for me, one important facet of that is our culture and our literature and our communication. So in my head, it all comes together. But on a very broader sense, it all comes together for the university as well. Because the honest truth is, if you're doing physics, because there really, in my mind, no objectivity anywhere, it's all subjective, you really need to be doing philosophy. And if you're doing engineering, you really need to be doing philosophy. Earlier this week, I was in China, well, yesterday, and I was talking with the representative from an engineering university. And he said, well, this is it. This is it. This is where the world is going. The engineering university, and we need to do material science and all the engineering science and physics. So I asked him, and then who manages the people? Who does the creating of the enterprise that fits the engineering into that space? And it cannot be done without people. And therefore, in my view, within this university, and playing the long game on this, is that really and truly, whichever program you're doing here, you really should be doing a philosophy course. Whichever program you're doing here, linked with that, you really should be doing a literature course. And I've seen other places, other universities, where if you are studying medicine, you are doing a literature course, you're doing a philosophy course. And I think in order for us to begin to really understand what the 21st century will mean, I think we have to have students consider what it really means to be a person, to be a human being. And I think we're missing that out a lot. But the people who are constructing AI models, they're not missing that, because they're now teaching the AI how to be ethical, how to be moral. And who are they using to do that? The philosophers. The president of Google, his undergrad degree is philosophy. It tells us something that the world is trying to literally hide behind the thought that the humanities is declining, that you cannot make progress without the capacity to think about what it means to be a person within the context of this earth. And so today, I want to greet you and thank you for having this sort of opportunity to explore these kinds of ideas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Edward Scar. And so in the same breath of promoting philosophy, we're learning that it works, and that it works in every single field and in every single discipline. To continue with our program, we'll now have the remarks, which will be done by Dr. Rotimi Omoshulu, who is our philosophy section coordinator.
Good morning, everyone. I supposed to come here to observe all protocols, but because you put the mic down, I couldn't observe that, so I have to raise it up. Today is a day to celebrate philosophy, not only the University of the West Indies, but globally, because the significance of philosophy to the stability of the world cannot be undermined or overemphasized. Last year, we gathered in this same venue to celebrate philosophy, and today we are here to celebrate philosophy. Philosophy is everything to me. Without philosophy, there cannot be growth, development, or new initiative in any society. You could take a cue from what our dean just said, that in every discipline here at UWI, a knowledge of philosophy is essential, is needed. And why is philosophy that significant? It is because it will make you to think outside the box. There is no discipline that does it better than philosophy. And when they are talking about critical thinking, that is the expertise of philosophy. If there is no way you will attend a philosophy course from beginning of the semester to the end of the semester that you would ever remain the same in terms of the enrichment of mind. So philosophy requires attention. And that is where I bring in the paradox of inverse significance. Yes, philosophy is important to us. Philosophy is needed in every discipline. How are we appreciating the discipline? What is the attention being paid to the discipline by the university, by the government, or by leaders in the society? We cannot deny the fact that we need to think critically, but the discipline that can actually promote critical thinking, is it being appreciated? Is it being put in the rightful place in the society? Thank God UNESCO is helping us. Thank God University of the West Indies has given us the opportunity to assist, because we still have some universities where you will not even find philosophy as a department, let alone as a program. So we appreciate what UWI is doing for us, but as Oliver Twist, we need more. What exactly do we need? We want philosophy to be the center of attention in this university. Our dean spoke about AI becoming ethical. We need a center of ethics at the University of the West Indies, where we can begin to change the mind of the students, staff, and the community ethically. And that is one of the things we can put on ground to celebrate philosophy, to show its significance to this university, to the Caribbean, and the world at large. I still have more to say when I'm presenting my topic. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Rotimi Omoshulu. All right, so we've always had a long-standing connection in celebrating Philosophy Day with the JN UNESCO. And so the next section, or the next item, I should say, on our program is that we'll now have the declaration of the day. This will be done by Mr. Everton Hanam. He is the Secretary General, Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO. Mr. Hanam.
Thank you, Doc. A pleasant morning to all. If you hear my voice sound a little, it is because I've just returned from a UNESCO meeting somewhere on the other side of the globe, Uzbekistan. Yeah, Uzbekistan. If you travel that side of the world, you need to make sure that you have enough local food in your suitcase. The pack Carmel Park, the pack Lasco come in very, very, very handy. Yes. First of all, allow me to again congratulate the faculty, the bioethics team, the philosophy team, Kimaj and the team for organizing and of course, keeping this activity together. Minister Green, the chairperson of the Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO, sends her warm greetings. But of course, you know the situation that presently exists. A physical presence is not possible at this time, but she shares and sends her special greetings. I want to especially welcome those persons who are here. I was about to use a term, live and direct, but I say in presencia. That's the term that is recognized in this space. And also to my colleagues who are online. I think there is my Secretary General, the Secretary General from the Commonwealth of the Bahamas who is online, and also a representative from the Bioethics Committee who is also online. I want to recognize those members of the team that are here. Of course, I have to mention Dr. Espute, I have to mention Professor Bewaji, Himaji, I have to mention all of those who continuously serve with the Jamaican National Commission for UNESCO on the various committees that we have, and the presence of the students and other guests that are here this morning. I especially want to welcome you. Before declaring the day, I think I just need to, again, share some perspective, since my own philosophical understanding or teachings came from a non-Western focus. And I already shared with Kimaja that she has invited me on many occasions to sit in her class and to get some of the Western, I would say indoctrination, but the Western learning. Because I studied in Cuba. And of course, at a time when the philosophical tendency, it came in a package. So we had social sciences. You had to do social sciences. Every area of study, you had to do social sciences. It started with philosophy. And of course, that was divided into historical and dialectical materialism. Then you did political economy. Then you did scientific communism. Those were compulsory. You were not going to get away from it. Depending on your course content, you did more hours. Those who did medicine didn't do as in-depth as those who did humanities course, like if you did linguistics or did law. So, and then you, of course, delve into persons like Kant and Hegel and the other chaps. And so you had a different kind of slant, question of cause and effect. But it still formed part of your own thinking in terms of how you would probably visualize or look at the world and the human conditions that presently exist. And so your perspective would have probably taken on a different approach. The end result could have definitely been the same, but the focus would have been from a different perspective. And so that is kind of how I kind of was introduced to philosophy. But it was compulsory. It was compulsory. And then you had to do, there was some 52 questions that you had to be fully acquainted with, because the exams were oral. And you could get questions from the first set of the question cohort or the last set, and you had to defend those questions orally in first year when Spanish was still not your dominant language. So it was really a philosophical challenge which we all had to master. When we came to the last section of the your final year, it was scientific communism. And that was really a challenge, because even the purveyors of scientific communism believed if it was still something that was reachable. Well, the jury is still out and how far we have progressed or not on scientific communism. So that would have constituted my own social sciences involvement while studying in Cuba. And most of us who would have studied in whether the Soviet Union then, or in Poland, or in Hungary at that time, under a scholarship program which we benefited from. Today, I'm really here to, again, declare the World Philosophy Day program open. But we're doing it against a number of backgrounds, both locally, regionally, and internationally. AI is really becoming, and has become, not is becoming, has become the centerpiece of a number of discussion. Even the recent UNESCO General Conference, AI seemed to have taken centerpiece, and the discussions evolved around the different tenets or impact of AI. Of course, today, philosophy is not escaping. And so AI is moving at a pace that probably outspeed the California wildfire, but we have our own wildfire now down in Westmoreland, I'm told. So it is something that we are going to need to see how best we can address or take stock of as we move forward. World Philosophy Day is also being held against the background of the 80th anniversary of UNESCO, against the 60th anniversary of the Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO. And of course, as mentioned earlier, we cannot not mention the devastation caused by a visitor whose first name begins with M. And so that's some of the intricacies, or some of the background on which we are looking at World Philosophy Day. We're also celebrating World Philosophy Day, and Dr. Espute is going to address that, against the departure of one of our dear colleagues. Dr. Espute will speak to that, Dr. Maria Smith. And he'll speak more on that, particularly later. So World Philosophy Day takes on great significance. A new Director General has been elected in UNESCO. The first Arab to be elected as Director General of UNESCO from Egypt. And so there are a lot of expectations in terms of where will UNESCO go in the next 20 years. Yes, a template has already been set, but there can be deviations from the template, because as a new leader, you're going to come to the table with your own thinking, having come from outside of UNESCO, not within the confines that he was a deputy director, and he came from outside, and so his own thinking. But it is also going to be challenged because of the milieu in which he finds himself. And so it's going to be hard-pressed to really make any serious input into the UNESCO family. Nevertheless, there are some expectations that we would want to expect from him in terms of his own development. Jamaica has been re-elected to serve on the executive board. The executive board within UNESCO is like the Security Council within the United Nations system. So you're among 58 members out of 193, so you are there at the table to make decisions and also to impact and guide some of the programs as we move forward within UNESCO. And it is a significant achievement for Jamaica, along with 3 other Caribbean countries, Haiti, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and of course, the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Those are the 4 Caribbean countries that would have been elected to serve on the executive board for the next 4 years. And that is the vehicle through which the discussions that are starting here, which must be continued, can expand and evolve into a discussion that will include our colleagues from other continents, our colleagues from other jurisdictions, and to really find out and to understand what are their own thinking as relates to the human conditions, as relates to the topic for World Philosophy Day this year. And so when UNESCO established World Philosophy Day some 25 years ago, it was the intention to continue the education process. And it has evolved, and it is rightly placed in the Faculty of Humanities and Education that this celebration has been hosted continuously for the longest while. And I want to really commend the faculty leaders, the dean, all the heads of department, the philosophy lecturers, both assistants and full lecturers, and of course the team that is here with us this morning in sharing this important occasion. The National Commission for UNESCO, which is the focal point for UNESCO activities in Jamaica, looks forward to and engages all teams, all agencies, including the university, to work together to make sure that activities like these are continuously recognized, celebrated, and promoted right across the faculties. That is why I'm pleased to see the representation both in this setting and, of course, representation that I'm told is online. So again, let me use this opportunity to thank you. Allow me to single out, Kimaja, please. Allow me to single her out, please. Consistent organizing and consistent input in this activity. At one time, I don't know that if I'll be here present, because then I was battling turbulence on a flight coming from Uzbekistan, but Jaja, I'm here, so I want to thank you for your insistence. Professor Bawaji, thank you for your presence, respect every time. Appreciate that. And the team from the faculty, Reverend Dispute, always with us on the various committees, really value your presence and your continuous input. And the team, those who presented earlier. Thank you very much for your input and your support. And I look forward to engaging you continuously. The National Commission for UNESCO, because there comes a time when others will have to replace, but the National Commission definitely will be supporting and guiding and participating in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anam. All right, we're going to segue into another aspect of our program. And so we're at that point where, of course, we will pay tribute to the late Dr. Maria Smith. For those of you who are pretty much familiar with her, you would know, or at least I refer to her as a cultural activist. We're fully aware that she has served in many capacities where it comes to the recognition of culture, not just in Jamaica, but in other areas of the Caribbean. And so to do this part of the program, I welcome to the, well, it's almost a sacred desk right now because Reverend Dr. Dispute is coming. And so I welcome you to the sacred desk, Reverend Dr. Peter Dispute.
Morning, everyone. Thank you for the doctorate. But maybe one day. St. Michael's College is pleased to be involved in the celebration of World Philosophy Day 2025 here at UWI Mona. Roman Catholic Church law requires that all Catholic priests have 2 full years of philosophy. And we at St. Michael's have been teaching philosophy since our founding in 1952. We've been teaching philosophy for the last 73 years. This semester, we have 70 students registered in all the levels of our licentiate in philosophy. And our students also take philosophy courses here on the Mona campus. Many of them are here in this room. We treasure our relationship with UWI. On a personal note, when I first came to this campus as a student in 1970, I studied chemistry and zoology. And it wasn't until I did my degree at St. Michael's in philosophy that I realized what chemistry and zoology was all about. That is a type of philosophy, positivism and empiricism as a way of coming to know things. But I didn't learn that when I was learning chemistry and zoology. They don't teach that what they teach in the natural sciences is a branch of philosophy. Similarly, of course, my degrees in social science, Marx, Weber, Durkheim, these people are philosophers, and they apply their philosophical training to the human condition, and we end up with disciplines of sociology and economics. And so all knowledge really has to do with philosophy. And when we celebrate World Philosophy Day, we're really celebrating all the branches of knowledge. And we at St. Michael's are very pleased to be invited to take part in this event. And so may I wish everyone here a happy UNESCO World Philosophy Day. For the last few years, it has been my privilege to sit on the Jamaica National Bioethics Committee, hosted by UNESCO, which has portfolio responsibility for this observance here today. And I also presently sit on the UNESCO Memory of the World Committee, along with representatives from the UWI Library, which is kindly hosting this event today in this lovely multifunctional room. And as Mr. Hannam said, previously I have served on other UNESCO committees to do with biosphere reserves and other environmental committees. But on the two committees that I presently sit, I have been honored to sit with Dr. Maria Robinson-Smith, the program manager, no, I guess we have to say the former program manager at the Jamaica National Committee for UNESCO. Maria, who was here with us last year, sadly passed away 2 months ago. I have been asked to pay tribute to her today, and in her honor, I offer these few words. As you know, UNESCO is about education, science, and culture, and Maria was a good pick for her post because she has serious credentials in all three areas. She's not best known for science, but among her last UNESCO projects that she set up was a hydroponics technology system at Northern Caribbean University in Manchester, where 200 women and young people are being trained to grow vegetables. The project aimed at promoting food security and employment among vulnerable groups. And I guess you realize that this is going to prove especially useful in the recovery efforts after Hurricane Melissa. What sort of prophetic insight was this on Maria's part to set up hydroponics agriculture just before a storm that destroyed a lot of agriculture? The field in which she is best known, however, is the cultural arena. But before she was a cultural icon, she had made her mark in education. She was a graduate of the Micro Teachers College, but I don't think she would like to be called an old Myconian, although she was. She also studied dance at the Jamaica School of Dance, which later merged into the Edna Manley College of the Performing and Visual Arts. I did not know this before, but Maria also had a degree in physical education, which she earned after studying in Australia. And she taught both physical education and dance at the Tivoli Gardens Comprehensive High School in Western Kingston. In fact, she was the head of the sports department at Tivoli High. I'm also told that she assisted the Ministry of Education to develop the first curriculum for physical education in Jamaican schools. So her science qualifications, her education. And so we see for Maria that early link between education and culture, sports and dance. After Tivoli, she served as dance coordinator at the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, the JCDC, and then later the performing arts coordinator for music and dance. Maria hailed from Walkerswood in St. Anne, and she came to Kingston to high school, the Queen's School and Excelsior. But it was in West Kingston that she got her first schooling in revivalism. She was a confirmed Methodist, but she came to appreciate Revival Zion, the 60 Order, and how this religious form cemented the Afro-Jamaican identity of so many Jamaicans. This would have been facilitated through her relationship with someone else who had a connection to West Kingston, the social anthropologist and politician Edward Philip George Siaga, who had published in 1969 an article entitled Revival Cults in Jamaica. Maria was encouraged by Mr. Siaga, as well as another anthropologist from this university, the late Barry Chavans, as well as cultural icon and dancer Rex Nettleford, who also had a connection with this university, to pursue doctoral studies in the subject of revivalism. And this she did, and out of that came her most famous work, Revivalism, representing an Afro-Jamaican identity. I have spent many hours with her discussing her findings, those published and those unpublished. For a few years, over the last few years, Maria has traveled with us in our vehicle to the major revival pilgrimage in Wat Town, St. Anne, the Jerusalem schoolroom. One of her signal accomplishments as program manager at the Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO is the inscription in December 2024 of the Wat Town pilgrimage on UNESCO's representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity. We traveled together last March to witness Minister Grange hand over the UNESCO certificate to the leaders of the United Zion Revival Council of Churches at Wat Town. Next semester, I will teach for the first time at St. Michael's a new theology course, Theo 3411, recently accredited by the UWI, on African Jamaican religious forms. Her book is one of the required texts for the course. Part of the course will be a field trip to Wat Town, and I had planned to invite Maria to give a guest lecture in the course. Sadly, that is not to be. But Maria's memory will live on in her published work and also in events like this, on which she worked so hard to develop a tradition. Generations of students will cite her in their essays and theses, and her legacy in sports, dance, education, and culture will last for many years to come. Big up, Maria.
Thank you, Reverend Esprit. And because I didn't say it before, Reverend Esprit is the Dean of Studies, St. Michael's College, and is an affiliate of UWI. All right, so we move into another aspect of our program. We're going to now have a cultural presentation, and this will be done by Mr. Matthew Fairweather Gilling.
Afternoon, everyone. This song that I'll be doing is just a little song that I made after the occurrence of the hurricane. So, yeah, it's called Mama Tell About Melissa. Mama tell about Melissa. Storm a come and the people no see it. Rough them gone and no food for guide. 19 gone, that is not a little debt. Trelawney, Westmoreland, St. Elizabeth. We a come down there for give the donation. Heaven me come make a muck tell the whole nation. Jamaica come make it cause you know we are the best. Put my faith in a God and trust and Jonas. The water no they get bucket and keg. Every tic-tac I know on the feedback cause every food and the most now no bed we need unity now like every bubble dread. We gone global all Fox News sorry. So inconsiderate like how what this come and do it. The struggle is tough and things I get rough until next year no more storm not civil. 1,000 lives value more than my degree. I that more on the college them fi see. So the country I gonna need for fresh like Colgate. A time for we stop and just donate them no see. Say everything fly for your 300 can your mother should have take the have somewhere a thief in a storm and a thief afterwards. People are suffering this just them hurts. Melissa is a blessing, Melissa is a curse. Melissa is a storm that we could have never reverse. Is a quarter of the country and things could have just be worse. But much just a thank God so we never have. The whole 14 parishes could have fall like pamphlet. Middlesex and sorry, yeah we keep a banquet. The western southern coast, yeah them need a blanket. It's real and nobody never says a prank it. Melissa. She come me strong back at the run where the one Melissa. Never tell about Melissa. Yeah, that's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gilling. So the challenge for you is based on our theme today, Mr. Gilling. Mr. Gilling, So the challenge for you is that based on our theme for today, you will record and send to the department something for us to use in our next year Quality Week video. Right, Dr. Mills White? All right, so we're moving into one of the most important parts, or I'd say the most important part of today's proceedings. And so I will now turn over this aspect to our dear Dr. Anthony Lordusamy. He's our senior lecturer, and so he will be moderating the next part of the program.
Hello, friends. Good morning and welcome to this segment of the World Philosophy Day at UWI. Thank you all for your kind presence. I especially recognize the honorable presence, of course, with so much joy, Mr. Everton Hannan, Professor Bevaji, our beloved Dean, respected Dr. Peter Espiot, head of the department, and other honorable members present online. Thank you for being with us at the moment. This session, of course, shall be marked by presentations from two very special speakers, Dr. Dion Edwards Kerr and Dr. Rotimi Omosulo. They will be addressing the theme, the human condition in a changing world. Their presentations will be followed by Q&A segment, and we offer a very, very special welcome to the speakers and thank them in advance for their very precious thoughts. I think it is philosopher Karl Marx who stated that philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point is to change it. Well, you will agree that given the present moment and human condition, prior to the task of humans changing the world itself is changing on a scale which we have never experienced before. Calling forth from philosophy, philosophers, philosophy practitioners, and from all of us, critical thinking, new perspectives, new attitudes, and new involvement. We are very sure our speakers today will guide us in this deeply in their own way. It's my pleasure now to introduce our first presenter, Dr. Dion Edwards Kerr. Dr. Dion Edwards Kerr is the Dean of the Faculty of Education and Humanities at the University of the West Indies, Mona. A senior lecturer at the UWI's School of Education, Dr. Edwards Kerr brings a distinguished academic profile in educational research, policy, and assessment. She holds a BSc and MSc in economics from the UWI Mona and transitioned into education, earning a diploma in teacher education at Sam Sharp Teachers College, followed by an MSc in educational research and a PhD in educational studies from the University of Manchester, UK. Dr. Dion has led numerous regional research initiatives contributing to policy development and educational transformation across the Caribbean. She is the author of influential works including Reimagining Education in the Commonwealth Caribbean and the forthcoming Right Start Performance in Early Childhood Education in Jamaica. Her research focuses on equity, access, and early intervention in education. So, Dr. Dion, over to you. Please welcome.
Thank you very much for a very warm welcome. I am very glad to see our students here this morning in really good numbers. I also want to welcome those persons who are online and express my gratitude to the department for having me at such a prestigious event this morning. Thank you. Okay. I came to UWI 35 years ago in 1988. I hope I did the math correctly. Just a couple days after Gilbert. So Gilbert hit Jamaica on September 12th, I think, 1988. And I came here at the beginning of October, 1988. So I've kind of walked with UWI, in a sense, in many, many ways, through many difficulties, and seen not just the resilience of UWI, but certainly the resilience of the Jamaican people and the will that we have to overcome. And if you think about it and how that word resilience has made its way onto social media platforms in the post-Melissa era, you realize that there is a kind of philosophical framework that has helped Jamaican people along the way. But that's not really what I'm going to talk about today. All right? When I came to UWI, I came to the Faculty of Social Sciences. And so if you did Introduction to Politics, Sociology, and Economics, which were essential courses for all undergraduate social scientists, and still is in many ways, we all did a component of that, of philosophy. So we studied Marx, we studied Garvey, we studied Rodney, we studied Weber. Later on, I studied a guy called Schumpeter. So philosophy was actually built into the curriculum, built into the framework of thinking that we had to perform. And so for me, philosophy has always been a part of how I approach the world, how I think about the world. But when I really started to take serious note of philosophy was when I started to study research, as a substantive content itself. So when I went to the University of Manchester, I did a master's degree in educational research, which meant studying research methodology. Now, once you study research methodology, invariably, you must take seriously what philosophy is, because all research, by definition, believe it or not, regardless of what we say, you say you're in physics and it's objective. It's not, because we all start from a question, and that question is fundamentally philosophical. That's the starting point. You can't do research without starting with a question. And once you start with a question, it is going to be viewed through the lens within which the prism through which you observe the world. And so that's how my interest really started to grow in terms of how do we help our students to begin to think about how to think. That's a challenge many of us have. How do we think about how to think? Well, my starting point really is this question of being human. And being human invariably comes with the asset of thinking. Thinking is an asset. It's part of the capital we have to be called human beings on the earth. If that is taken away from you through whatever means, it's almost as if you're no longer human. So the human condition and the question of the human condition is very much relevant to where we are in the 21st century. Very relevant, right? So, Mr. Fat, has he left? Mr. Everton, is he still here? He left, but you heard him speak of Uzbekistan and countries like China, where order almost relegates thinking. It almost removes it because the order is more important than the thinking. In our more liberal societies, we've taken thinking to another level of almost ridiculous. So today, I just want to do a very simple exploration and ask some questions, particularly with our students here, about what it means to be human. And when we speak of the human condition, what are we talking about? And here are my thoughts on that. So, when it comes to the human condition, for me, the starting point is this. Those features among us that we share by virtue of simply being human. We are vulnerable, and we see that now. We see that in Jamaica, we see that across the world. We are all vulnerable one way or the other. Our morality, our yearning for meaning, and constructing meaning, our social nature, our contradictions, and our sense of being a part of a world and how to navigate that world. Our human condition is shaped by a series of universal experiences. We're born, we suffer loss, we experience joy, we're part of conflict, and we face uncertainty. But it also includes the internal tensions we carry as individual human beings. For some of us, the desire for freedom versus the need for security. The longing for meaning in a world that actually the world tends to want to give you all the answers, yet no answer. The struggle to define ourselves while being shaped by forces, by variables beyond our control. So the politics, the history, particularly in the Caribbean here, the sociocultural aspects of our lives actually shape us before we begin to even try to analyze who we are. I find this tension is persistent. There's a persistence because to be human is to live between I am and what I hope to become. For me, that is the tension. Being caught in the nexus between who I am and who I want to become. And as you get older, guys, I can guarantee you that that tension does not diminish. It actually escalates. It is also between what I understand and what for me is still vague and opaque and ambiguous. It is also between my finite life as a human being, the day I was born and the day I die, and my infinite aspirations. We're full of that, full of aspirations. They're always tumbling over in our minds. So the human condition is not only a state of being, it is a state of becoming. And for me, that's the dynamic part, the part that I like, the part about being, of becoming. For me, that's what university is about, that's what schooling is about, that's what meeting new people is about. It's about becoming. How do I become? Of reaching, of negotiating my place in a reality that is constantly shifting. If you think about last week and you think about this week, you'll realize that there's a slight shift in reality that has taken place between those 7 days. For me, that reality was just now. I came back to Jamaica this morning, coming from mainland China via Hong Kong, and experiencing 3 or 4 different realities in under 24 hours is enough to help you to rethink who you are as a human being. And when you're on that side of the world, recognizing that it's a different kind of world than this world, and then this Jamaica world that we live in, it helps you to reframe who you are, who I am, my aspirations, and who I want to become. So, to kind of help us to think through that, and I'm going to ask you to come with me, right? A little bit. One of the things I like to ask my students is, am I making sense? Because sometimes we think we're making sense, but we're not, right? I want to explore this human condition a little bit more. And so this is where the philosophy comes in, which is by far, as both the previous speakers said, it's one of the oldest tools for making sense, right? I like to think with thinking, and I like to think with concepts, with ideas. So I want to think through this through some particular philosophical lenses, starting with existentialism. For me, starting there is largely because it's something that I've been drawn to over the years. It might not be where I end up, but that's where I'm going to start. A defining feature of the human condition within an existential framework is freedom, radical freedom. We are not born with a predetermined essence or purpose. Instead, existence precedes essence. That's what Sartre says. Meaning, we must define ourselves through our choices. This freedom is supposed to be exhilarating, but also deeply disturbing and unsettling, because it confronts us with responsibility. We cannot hide behind faith, tradition, or external authority. With the responsibility comes what Sartre calls anguish, the realization that nothing guarantees we will choose well, that we will make the right decision, and that our choices shape not only ourselves, but what we believe humanity should be. There are other dimensions apart from Sartre, like Camus and Heidegger. They add their own points. Camus about the absurd, the tension between our desire for order and the world's indifference. Heidegger emphasizes being towards death and the challenge of living authentically in a society that encourages distraction and conformity at the same time. Social media tell us that. For me, that is a manifestation of social media. It is both distracting and it is requiring conformity. Together, these thinkers depict the human condition as a struggle for authenticity, meaning, and responsible self-creation in a world that very often offers no blueprint. From a humanist perspective, the human condition is rooted in dignity and rationality and the capacity for growth. Humanism sees people not as passive beings, but as agents capable of creativity, moral reflection, and progress. Though it acknowledges suffering and limitation, it maintains that humans have the potential to improve themselves and their world. The tension here arises between what we can be and what unjust and social conditions makes us. From a religious perspective, a theological perspective, we know we have different religious points of view. Christianity speaks of salvation and redemption. We're born in sin, shaped in iniquity, but Christianity provides us the avenue for salvation, right? In effect, humans are seen as morally responsible beings within a Christian framework, created by God, struggling with imperfection, but capable of receiving salvation. Eastern traditions like Buddhism define the human condition through the reality of suffering and the possibility of liberation through inner transformation. There is this tension between being human not simply as an existential anxiety, but as part of a spiritual or moral journey towards a kind of wholeness. So that's what redemption really is to me, bringing us to a kind of wholeness. Marxism, which, as I said, when you studied economics here at U in the 80s and the 70s, you invariably was going to meet Marx. Because Marx brings us into the thinking of materialism and coming in contact with structure. And I can tell you that for years, and a lot of my research, a lot of my work is about contesting the structure of our society and how that impacts and influences our well-being. So we know that Marx frames the human condition in terms of historical and economic structures, essentially as creative and social beings, but under capitalism, we experience alienation from our labor, from our relationships, and from ourselves. So there's this tension that arises from those material contradictions, the desire for self-actualization, limited by systems of inequity and inequality. And I will confess, that is the main vein of the analysis that I bring to education in the Caribbean. Freedom and meaning in this view require change in structures that restrict human flourishing. So when I speak of education, I speak of transforming the curriculum, changing the structure of schooling, changing pedagogy, and shifting that so we can include every person, regardless of who they are or where they're from, right? So I will confess that although I pretend to be liberal, at the very core is this idea of structure. The human condition in a changing world, that is the theme. And so what I want to do in just 2 minutes is an existential reevaluation, if you will allow me, sir. How does the human condition appear now in an era shaped by rapid technological change, hyperconnectivity, and global uncertainty? This morning, I was saying to my daughter that throughout my entire journey, all the way to China and back, I never lost connectivity. At no point in time did I lose connectivity. I was constantly in touch, constantly having internet. That's what the apps are for. Times have changed. There was a time you would have gone and you would have to send a telegram or a letter. Anybody know what a telegram is? You know what a telegram is? I'm sure you know Telegram, the app, but you don't know Telegram that go through the post office. Right? Back in the day, that's what we used to have to do. At no point at all. Nobody, you could get in touch with me. Maybe it was midnight and you couldn't because I was asleep. But I always had internet. That's what the apps are for. The apps even protected my privacy. I was able to buy it. So we're in an era where just about everything has changed, and what it really means to be human is also shifting. In many ways, the existential tension, in my mind, becomes sharper rather than diminished. We have more choices than any previous generation. But with this abundance, I call it tyranny. It's just that we have the tyranny of the urgent. Everything is an urgent thing now. We also have the tyranny of this abundant choice. Because to me, it's a distraction. It heightens our level of anxiety. And although in terms of our identities, we feel more fluid, with fluidity of our identities come fragility. This digital world invites us to curate this ideal person, ideal version of ourselves. And what do the young people say it is? Our best self. When you go on any social media platform, every single person, regardless of where we are from or who we are, we're living our best selves. That's why we post the pictures of what we eat and drink and where we go and who we meet. Because we're supposed to be living our best selves. The digital world invites us into that, to curate it, all right? To make it up then, to blur the line between authenticity and performance. Sartre's idea that we are responsible for defining ourselves becomes more complicated when algorithms, social pressures, and global media shape us so much of what we see and how we behave. How many of us will scroll through TikTok and see patty 2 times and go to juicy beef in the next half an hour? Invariably, that's what it does. So, is the existential tension more threatening today? Potentially for me, yes. Because the world creates new forms of comparison. It's a horrible thing for young people to live in a world where they're constantly having to compare themselves with others. It's comparison, it's distraction, it's alienation. It amplifies our freedom and simultaneously overwhelms it. Is there any loss of identity? For me, there is certainly a kind of destabilization of identity. Years I used to understand what a fluid identity means. I am not sure I do anymore. The self is no longer anchored by a tradition or by stable social roles. With certainty, identity becomes something we continuously have to reconstruct. It's this unending project of remaking ourselves rather than a secure foundation. My other question is the search for purpose still a worthy pursuit? I believe in purpose. I believe that the world, the earth, generates purpose, something for us to do. I actually believe that. I say absolutely, it is still worthy to pursue purpose. And I think even more now than ever, in a world that offers no fixed meaning, things keep changing, politics change, right? For example, words like diversity change over time. The pursuit of purpose becomes an act for me of resistance. As somebody who considers existentialism, I would argue that meaning has always been something we create, not something we find waiting. I believe in acting on the world, not waiting on the world to act on me. The fact that the world is changing does not negate making meaning for ourselves. In fact, I think it makes it more urgent for us to do so. So I then ask, can religion still help? Yes, for many, and perhaps more profoundly so, because religion can provide a moral orientation, an anchor, a community, and a narrative that situates suffering and purpose within a larger context. If you're suffering and there's no purpose to it, and your house gone and you're homeless, if there's no purpose to it, there is no hope. You can't rebuild because you have no starting point, right? So whether you want to accept what religion brings, literally or symbolically, it does offer tools for grappling with existential questions in ways that many of the secular, and if I might say, liberal frameworks cannot help us to find and to deal with struggle. So I think this is my last question. Does the digital age diminish the human condition? It might. In many ways it can. Technology, I think, can deepen alienation. And it really provides too many distractions and erode genuine, authentic connection between people. So it's easy to stay behind your TikTok, IG, or Instagram and write something really naughty about someone else who you've never met. And that's because we have no authentic connection. In a way, it's also eroding decency and kindness. But it can also enhance creativity and expand our communities and give us new platforms for expression. It will not necessarily diminish the human condition by default. Rather, I think it will test our ability to live it in a way that we are able to deliberately manipulate it to serve our purpose. So how should humans cope then? From an existential point of view, and not purely, because it's mixed up by now, and my thoughts are all over the place. My thing is not to retreat, but to engage mindfully and authentically. We can cope by acknowledging that our freedom that we now have rather than denying it. Choosing with intention rather than drifting towards trends. So easy to drift towards a trend and find that it is nothing more than a nothing. Nurturing meaningful relationships rather than superficial connections. Cultivating awareness of our morality and using it to clarify what matters. Embracing creativity, responsibility, and self-reflection. And resisting the temptation to outsource our identity to the thoughts of others near and far, to any kind of external system beyond ourselves. In short, we cope, I think we cope, by accepting the tension of being human and responding to the life we face now with courage rather than avoiding it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Dion, for making a wonderful exposition on what it means to be human in our times. And if I were to summarize your wonderful insights and presentation, I think you invited us to be in our times, first of all, that we need to be leading our life thinkingly, and secondly, by becomingly, and thirdly, by freely. So thinking, becoming, and with freedom. These should be the guiding marks for our present moment of being human. If I may have to say a few more words on your wonderful presentation, I may say that one of the good definitions that I have come across, what it means to be human in our times, across cultures, I think we can say that a human is the one who walks on earth under the sky, to put your three characteristics consciously, aspirationally, or becomingly, or freely. So, but the danger in all these positions are also looming. Most of the time, this thinking is reduced to kind of a specific difference only by which we really recognize our uniqueness. We know that we are characterized by our thinking, but this thinking should not be reduced to reasoning and calculation. Thinking should be broader, as the way you have explicated. And secondly, beautifully you said that our life is also marked by not just by being statically, but being is not just a noun, it is a verb. We are being by becomingly. We are by being. So that verb is to be stressed. And thirdly, of course, you elaborated on the element of freedom, especially in our moment of artificial intelligence, which is not any longer is just a tool, it is going to become an agency who is going to rob up our freedom. So recognizing the danger that artificial intelligence should remain as a tool, never become as an agency. That agency should be the human hallmark, which is so much stressed by existentialism, so well and so beautifully elaborated. So thank you, Professor Dion, for really giving us these three attributes and three characteristics for living our life at the present moment with our human condition. Thank you so much. And we will take up some questions for you soon after the presentation by Dr. Rotti. Our next speaker is my dear colleague, Dr. Rotimi Omasulu. He is a lecturer in philosophy in the Department of Language, Linguistics and Philosophy. Prior to joining UWI in 2019, he was a philosophy lecturer at Redeemers University, Nigeria for over 8 years. He was also a graduate fellow teaching philosophy courses at the University of Lagos, Nigeria between 2008 and 2011. He bagged Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy honors in 2002, Master of Arts in Philosophy 2006, and Doctor of Philosophy in 2015. That is his PhD. All from the University of Lagos, Nigeria. He obtained certificate in Sustainable Development Goals and Cultural Transformation from the University of Bergen, Norway in 2015, having won a full scholarship that covered all expenses, including tuition and return ticket. His research interests cover environmental ethics, logic, metaphysics, axiology, philosophy of development, philosophy of law, philosophy of religion, and intercultural philosophy. This more or less coincides with the definition of human I gave, what it means to be human. On earth, under the sky, many subjects in between. Congratulations. Dr. Omasulu has 22 peer-reviewed publications in scholarly journals and book chapters. He is a co-author of Introduction to Philosophy and Logic, published by Redeemers University Press in 2014, with Professor John Bevaji Please, we gladly recognize the honorable presence of Professor John Bevaji. Please, sir, put up your hand for the... He is a very eminent professor, and we are really blessed by his presence at the moment, especially for the talk of Dr. Rotimi. With Professor Bevaji, he has co-authored Fragmented Identities of Nigeria, Socio-Political and Economic Crisis, published by Lexington Books in 2022. He is presently the coordinator of philosophy section, UWI Mona, Jamaica. Dr. Rotimi, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. If not because I'm a philosopher, I would have said that the dean had already made all the points, because she delivered her speech eloquently well. But philosophy is a discipline that doesn't end, because the end of philosophy is the end of humanity. It is on that note, I welcome you to my presentation, and the title remains the same: the human condition in a changing world. What do I really want to achieve with this presentation? I want to say that philosophers over the years have been debating on the nature of reality. I will be situating this concept of reality within human condition that we have today. Do we really know our condition in the real sense of it? And how does it play out in the history of philosophy over the years? So, my presentation will bring to the fore thoughts of some philosophers on the nature of reality, and that will enable us to understand the problem of change and permanence in philosophy, especially in connection to human condition in the world today. The picture you are seeing is that of my wife. You are not going to see her face very well, and that is also deliberate. She sent this picture to me last week, and the first thing I did was to ask her who snapped the picture. And she said she snapped herself. I asked my question because I was seeing her two hands, and I thought somebody must have helped her to snap the picture. She said she was at the front of a mirror doing so. So my understanding of reality was not the best at that material time. So you can see that sometimes appearance is not the same as reality. And that takes me to another slide. You are seeing three buckets, and I'm taking you through the thought of John Locke, who believes that reality is difficult to understand, and that also fits into the conversation around change and permanence in the world. The first one, let us assume, is a bucket with hot water, and the blue one is the one with cold water. The bucket in between, the middle one, is the one with lukewarm water. John Locke says that if you dip your hand into the hot one, and you also dip your second hand into the cold one, and you decide to dip your hand into the middle one, you are not going to have the same sensation. The hot one, if you dip it into the lukewarm water, it will be giving you cold sensation. And the cold one, if you dip it into the lukewarm water, it will become warm a bit. Therefore, the same bucket, the same water, giving different sensations. So it is difficult for us to actually understand the nature of reality in the world. And that brings me into the perspective of Parmenides, who says nothing changes. That if you are seeing any change around you, you are suffering from the illusion of the senses. He wrote a book titled On Nature. And he distinguished between two aspects of reality, that is, the will of the senses and the will of reason. That the will of the senses will never give us actual meaning. It will be deceiving us. It will be giving us inauthentic information, whereas the way of reason is the only way we can understand being. And being in itself is unchangeable, because nothing comes into being and nothing comes out of being. So what is reality? If you are experiencing changes, you are suffering from the illusion of the senses, according to Parmenides. And Plato comes into the same conversation again. What does he say? He made us to understand that, yes, we are in a changing world, but the world is not actually changing. He establishes his claim through the allegory of the cave. The cave represents the world of appearances, and the prison in the cave, they represent trapped humanity, that is, you and I. Is it possible for us to understand reality in this world? Can we really experience change in the truest sense of it? Plato says no. If you really want to understand reality, you have to think beyond the world of appearance. You have to connect yourself to the world of forms. And that is the beauty of philosophy. And Plato concludes that it is only through philosophical reasoning that we can have the knowledge of reality in itself. And that knowledge is not in this world, it's in the world of form. And you think you are in this world possessing the right knowledge, Plato will say no to it. And that brings me into the next slide. And I would want to see your reaction to this. Between the chicken and the egg, which came first? How? Because for chicken to exist, the egg must be laid. By who? Look at the logic. Chicken cannot exist without the egg. And the egg cannot without the chicken. So which one came first? Outside this class, continue to think so that we will not be suffering from illusion of the senses. Heraclitus disagreed with Plato, with Parmenides, by saying that change is the only permanent thing in this world. That if we are talking about reality, reality is not static. It's not rigid. Reality is dynamic. And that is why process metaphysics is a new form of research in philosophy today. If you are familiar with the thought of Whitehead, you will understand process metaphysics, that reality is not in isolation. It's dynamic, and interconnected. So for Heraclitus, we cannot understand the human condition unless you understand what change is. The dean spoke about karmas, and I was afraid that was she going to say everything about karmas. I discovered that I still have something to say. Karmas spoke about change in respect to the division between the class of the bourgeoisie and the class of the proletariat. The class of the bourgeoisie would not want change in this world. They would want to continue to oppress and suppress the working class. But Karmas told the working class that they have something to achieve, and that is for them to confront their oppressors, the bourgeoisies. And if they are able to do this, they will be losing nothing other than their chains, and that will bring about change in their human condition. So Karmas is also a philosopher of change in a changing world, if you agree that there is change in this world. I'm still battling with that thought, whether truly there is change or I'm suffering from the illusion of the senses, as Parmenides would want me to believe. Hannah Arendt wrote a book that is highly connected to the title of this work, and yes, to the theme of this gathering, and to the theme of my presentation. The title of the book is The Human Condition. The book was published in 1958, and Hannah Arendt is one of the female philosophers in the history of philosophy. So for her, in that book, she identifies labor, work, and action as the fundamental elements of human condition in the world. Who is here to counter this position? You have to labor, you have to work, and you have to act. So she argues that action is the only thing that discloses the plurality, discloses the human condition of plurality. You have to act, you have to speak. Through action, through speaking, you begin to exhibit, to display your plurality. Today, I'm a presenter before you. Tomorrow, I may be that driver, driving my vehicle. Or I may be a father to my son, husband to my wife, and employee to UWI. I'm still employee to UWI. So that is the plurality, through my action. And if I decide to say, UWI, I want to go back home to Nigeria, then my human condition will also change. So for Hannah Arendt, through action, through speaking, because they can still understand you, assess you on the basis of the content of your thoughts. If you speak, your human condition. This particular slide is dear to my heart because Samuel Beckett wrote Waiting for Godot in 1952 to depict the human condition in this world. The two characters in the book were Vladimir and Estragon. They were waiting for their savior, Godot. Godot never came. They hoped, they thought that, yes, if Godot should come, they would be able to find meaning into their life. But Godot refused to come. I should have explained this particular slide before Hannah Arendt, because in philosophy we like to present our thoughts chronologically in order to display the essence of logic in our discipline. And Samuel Beckett published Waiting for Godot in 1952, and Hannah Arendt published The Human Condition in 1958. So I was supposed to explain the book published in 1952 before the one published in 1958. However, this particular slide is connected to the next slide, and I will do justice to that. But if you really want to understand the human condition very well from Samuel Beckett, you should also read the book titled The Myth of Sisyphus by Albert Camus. You will also understand the human condition, rolling stone up the hill and falling down. So you will know exactly what human condition is. So Samuel Beckett's book is connected to this particular slide because just 2 weeks ago, we experienced hurricane. 2 weeks or almost 3 weeks. Is it 2 weeks? Yeah, we experienced Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica. And in Waiting for Godot, the two characters, they were there thinking that Godot would come. But Godot didn't come. Before the occurrence of Hurricane Melissa, we were told that it was coming. And some Jamaicans even made artistic work to display how some people forced Hurricane Melissa not to come to Jamaica. But at the end of the day, Hurricane Melissa came. What did she do? She created change. Or should I say, she brought about the concept of change and permanence into Jamaica. And what exactly do I mean by this? Hurricane Melissa has made some house owners to become squatters. But again, it has reinforced the community life in Jamaica. And you will understand this by the time you see the way Jamaicans have come together as a nation to provide support for the victims. And that is to make us to understand the phenomena of unity in diversity. Melissa thought she would come and dislodge us from our sense of unity, from our sense of oneness, and from our sense of solidarity. It tested us, but today we are watching stronger in one voice that Jamaica must rise again. And that is what we have displayed in our reaction to the occurrence of Hurricane Melissa. So that is how we should understand our human condition, because there is no way we will not experience hurricane. It is part of our human condition in Jamaica. But to what extent can we react positively? Can we turn it into an experience of unity, an experience of growth? Yes. There is a way we can manage our condition, even though the condition would appear not to favor us. There is still a way we can make it to favor us if we understand that disappointment is not a disgrace. It's for you to think inward and see what you can do better next time. And the experience of Hurricane Melissa has taught us how to remain one as a country. And that's why I believe that, yes, our human condition is better off, even though in the face of challenges, in the face of crisis. On that note, I am bringing my conversation into conclusion to say that the everyday existence of humans in the world depicts nothing but a struggle between change and permanence. However, our comfort comes from the fact that we cannot escape our human condition even in a changing world. We are in this world to begin to create meaning for ourselves. We are in this world to connect with others. We are in this world to make changes. And that is the phenomenon of our existence. So the human condition in a changing world is a condition that we cannot escape. Disappointment will come. We were born at a particular time, and we are going to die at a particular time. That is my human condition. And the only thing that I'm always conscious of is that one day I'm going to die. But when the time will come is what I don't know. So the human condition in a changing world is an ongoing experience for you and I. So the way you understand the condition, the way you want to react to the condition will show your identity as an individual. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Omaslu, for giving us that sense of courage to convert crisis into an opportunity. And I was just recollecting a famous quotation that I have read in my younger days when you were describing and elaborating that point. That serenity is not freedom from the storm, it has to be amidst it. So you told us that the human condition cannot be escaped, but we have equally the ability, responsibility, which is another word for responsibility, to convert a crisis situation into fruitful and opportune moments. Thank you for giving us that confidence, which I call as cosmic confidence, Dr. Masalo. This cosmic confidence reminds me that most of the time we confine our element of hope merely to a hope of the future. While that is a very important thing for us to initiate human responses and actions, but hope also is hope in the invisible. And if that invisible dimension is missing, hope for the future may not be really sufficient to carry on with our human condition. Perhaps we need to work out the middle ground between hope of the future and hope in the invisible into a kind of a rhythmic hope, about which we will have another occasion to speak. So thank you, Dr. Rotimi, for inspiring us in this regard. And it has been my joy and honor just to be listening to both precious speakers, very insightful presentations. Now the floor is open for your little conversation with our speakers, right? Let me just begin with one small question to both of them. Dr. Dion and Dr. Rotimi, on a day like this, we wish each other happy Philosophy Day. I just ask one question to both of you. Happy Philosophy Day. Can philosophy make us happy? So please, we will deliberate upon this. We know that with your presentations, philosophy is giving us critical thinking and it enhances our ability for thinking and so on. But what is the role of happiness in philosophy? Thank you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Ludus Sami. If philosophy cannot make us happy, I think my life will be meaningless. Because in philosophy, it is in philosophy that my happiness comes. And what do I mean by this? Tell me a discipline that can give you answer to everything, if not philosophy. Tell me a discipline that will let you realize your identity, your humanity and humanness, if not philosophy. And by happiness, what do I mean? The ability to accept your human condition. If you are not accepting your human condition, you cannot be happy. Anytime I remember that I cannot escape my human condition, which exactly what I said in my last slide, that we cannot escape human condition, and that is where my comfort comes from. And that is how you should know that that philosophy is giving me happiness. Am I supposed to be unhappy if I'm striving towards something and along the way I missed it? Should that make me unhappy? If I think I should be worthy and I don't have enough money, am I supposed to be unhappy? If I should be married and I'm yet to get a wife, am I supposed to be unhappy? If I should be a graduate and I'm still a student, am I supposed to be unhappy? If, as a department, we're supposed to have enough students in our section and we are still advertising, struggling to have more students, and we are not getting there, am I supposed to be happy? No. What I'm supposed to do is to continue to do what is right. And what is that? What you believe in, your conviction. So philosophy is that discipline that will give you self-conviction, ability to understand who you are, because Socrates says that an unexamined life is not worth living. As long as you are ready to examine your life, you will see that your happiness will flow from it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. I just asked that question to initiate the discussion. So, anybody is having a question to? Yes, the Dean.
I think Dr. Osmola fully aerated, if that's a word, the business of happiness in philosophy. And I quite agree with him that happiness is an external kind of thing that most people plan it, I think. For me, though, it's the thing I carry inside of me that gives me a kind of joy. I stopped a long time ago pursuing happiness because it's something that's created for me. And so, like him, I work with a more spiritual essence of myself and operate from that rather than a script or something that's curated that should tell me what happiness is. So that spiritual thing in me is my philosophical, what should I say now, compass. And that's what carries me. And I think as young people, it's something you have to look for as you begin to become yourself. What is your compass on the inside that will help you to carry this joy, this confidence, as my colleague says, and not happiness as the world defines it.
Thank you. Yes, Kimaka. Please come. You want the mic?
I want to ask if you think that the human condition is permanent, or if the human condition changes as the world changes, or and also if the world changes and that affects the human condition, if a change in world affects a change in human condition. I don't know. Are you clear? Yeah, for both presenters.
Okay, thanks for your question. Whether if the world is changing, will that change the human condition? That is the question, right? The human condition is permanent. And what do we mean by human condition? Things that we cannot run away from. Things like anguish, sorrow, sadness, breakthrough. Yes, no matter how you are in this world, unless you don't know how to measure your breakthrough, you will definitely experience breakthrough. You will be sad when sadness will be the state of affair in your life. And you will also be, I'm going back to you, be happy. It depends on understanding of happiness. So the human condition is always there. We can't escape it. But is there truly a change in the world? Jamaica has always been where it is right from time. Nigeria cannot change. Just you can't uproot Nigeria from where it is, place it in another country. America is where it is. So if we are talking about change in the world, what exactly are we saying? Are we talking about scientific innovations or unchangeable biological natures of man? There is this statement by, I don't know whether Leibniz or Heidegger, that the moment a man is born is old enough, or the moment a person is born is old enough to die. So there are things that are just there that we cannot change. So how can the world change when nothing seems to be changing? There is this statement that everything we have is a remake that is being remade. Everything we have is a remake that is being remade. So are we really creating change? If you want to invent anything, the raw materials that you want to use are always there. And that is why Parmenides says, being is. Nothing comes into being. Nothing goes out of being. Everything that we want to experience, that we want to use to experience change, has already been made. And let me ask some Christians, brothers that are here, if you believe in creationism, are you going to say that God didn't create everything completely at the beginning? If you are thinking that there is changes in the world. If God created everything completely, then nothing changes. And that goes back to Parmenides' notion of being. Being is, not being is not. Thank you.
Now that's interesting. If we believe in creationism, in the beginning, did God create everything that we needed from then to eternity? If you believe that, then the conclusion is that nothing changes. The other side of that is that if you believe in evolution, then we are in constant change. Correct? By that extension, that's what it means. So at the end of the day, it depends on the standpoint that you take. Because if I say I believe, Genesis 1, then nothing changed. And he's right. The things we use to make lithium batteries have always existed. They're just now existing in the form of a lithium battery. The things we have in these cell phones that world governments are fighting over, actually, that those precious metals, they've always existed. They just are existing now in the form of the cell phone. So in truth and in fact, on both sides of the argument, and because I don't believe in universal arguments and singular arguments, both sides actually have its own merit. On one end, we're not changing, and on the other end, we are changing. So that's why I think the human condition is this dynamic state. It's not a static state. That's how I see it.
I will add, yes, I will come to you, Anthony. Maybe as a little response to them, both of them. Creatio continua, continued creation is also the Christian conception. And we also speak in Christian tradition so much about new creation and so on. So there is also the other side to things. It is not a fixed pattern. But I think one way to philosophically clarify your position, and maybe also as a little response to Kim, would be, I think if we can make a basic distinction between human invariance and cultural specifics, some solution may come. The way that Dr. Rotimi is saying that all of us are born and we find ourselves in certain conditions, you cannot change. Yes, in a way it is true, because there is something called human invariance. All of us are born, invariably born, invariably it is a truth, and we are going to die. That is also an invariable condition which we cannot escape. So, and so many human acts that we will perform in between, believing, reasoning, loving, hating, all between this being born and our act of going to die, you know. Between birth and death, so many acts we are invariably performing by virtue of being human. There is no change in that. But the interpretation that we are going to give to each of these human acts is going to be different and changing. Interpretation. And therefore, philosophers would have faced similar questions, but then every context offers its own answer. Every philosopher, keeping with his own situation or her own situation, the answer is going to be very different, because our life is not only our life also is circumstance. My life plus circumstance. While I may think that my human condition is fixed, we simply have no hold over circumstance that is outside. And therefore, in a way, I think Kim is trying to hint at that point of circumstance, which is constantly changing, which is almost forcing us also to rethink our fixed static nature and so on. So maybe we can continue this conversation. And Anthony, you can ask your question now.
Well, good day, everyone. So, can you hear me? So, in contrast, can we also think about maybe philosophers like Heraclitus, who would have suggested that change is almost inevitable, meaning that he said that you can't step into the same river twice. And that means that change is something that, just as the water changes from time to time in the river, us humans also change from the day we were born till the day we die. So we change. And maybe we can talk about the inability to change from a paradoxical standpoint. But in reality, change can also be inevitable with our understanding of the world. And every day we see new things. Change, or the lack of it thereof, would mean being contented. And yes, being contented is also good. But there is also the need for us to seek for newer ways of solving our problems, newer ways of thinking about our shared humanity, as well as becoming members of society and serving in new ways. So that's just my little addition.
Thanks for your comment or question, Mr. Ezene, Antoinette Ezene. I would draw your attention to the philosophy of Leibniz. So he has a theory called monadism, his theory of monad. So that a monad is a self-sustained being. Nothing comes into a monad and nothing goes out of a monad. So the moment you are born, everything about your growth is already embedded in you. So you are only actualizing that essence in you. You are not bringing out anything new. Nothing is really changing, if you look at it from that perspective. So reality for monad is one, pre-established harmony. It's theory of pre-established harmony. So there is that harmony in the monad that makes it to sustain itself. And there is that harmony in you that makes you to grow from infancy to adulthood. And Aristotle also made this point. From the stage of actuality, potency to actuality, everything is there, but you have the potency to move. So everything is embedded in you. It's not as if that growth is a new occurrence in your life. Quote and unquote, the essence of that growth is in you. And that is what philosophers are trying to draw our attention to, so that we will not be suffering from the illusion of the senses, especially if you look at it from the perspective of Plato, the allegory of the cave that I alluded to in my presentation. The prisoners, they were looking at shadows of horses, thinking that they were seeing the original things. But until they left the cave to have contact with the real us, the real world. So what you are calling changes, they are just appearances. And there is always a difference between appearance and reality. Reality is one. And that is why the human condition in a changing world remains the same. Thank you.
Maybe a little request question to Dr. Rotimi. He brought in Aristotle, but Aristotle also spoke about act and potency, and God as a pure act. Only the human beings and the reality have the potency to become. So to the extent we accept potency, was he really stressing the fixed element of human beings? Only God is pure act, who is a realized being. But we are all in potency to become. So how do we interpret potency dimension, Dr. Rotimi?
I interpreted Aristotle in that context to suit my purpose. Okay? So that's it.
Yes, Professor Peter. Yeah. Yes, Professor. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. You are speaking about, you're addressing the question of whether the human condition can change in a changing world. And Dr. Rotimi says there's no such thing as changing the human condition because everything is already there in potential. All you're doing is realizing the potential that was there. But then why do you assume that the world is changing? Don't you see also that what appears to be changing in the world is simply the potential of the world, which is being realized? So if the human is not changing, then can we not argue also that the world is not changing either? And therefore, neither human nor world is changing.
I thought my human condition would be changed. I don't know whether I should give the mic to the dean to lead the conversation.
For truth, the word potential there for me is very important. So let's just take it from the bottom. He's saying within us, from the time we're born, that potential is born within us. So if we don't change, in other words, we are predestined to be a particular way. That's the argument, right? I look like I'm not getting it, but I do get it, don't you? Hold on. So if we are predestined, then it is likely that it negates the need for certain things that society continues to fight for. So things like education, which is my pet peeve, become a kind of a ongoing struggle for some people. I'm just taking it down to the brass tacks, classroom level. It therefore means that a kid who is not born with a particular potential just cannot make it in that classroom. That's the argument. But our education system and the way we operate says that potential can change, and so we add schooling to it, we add counseling to it, we add whatever to it in order to make it change. So we cannot, though, escape the notion of being predestined. And for me, that's where the philosopher's game, that's what I call it, the philosopher's game, come into place, entangling between that point of being predestined and the capacity to change. As an educator, I believe in the capacity to change the outcomes for a student, otherwise there would be no point being in education, yes? Yeah.
That is not my position. That is not my position because reality is unchangeable. We are not bringing anything into this world. And if you look at your palms when you were born, what did you come to this world with? Nothing. And you cannot use your palms to change anything. Whatever you are doing, you are just playing the role already designed for you. So, are we truly in a changing world? My answer is no. If you follow the position of Plato, I'm arguing here as a philosopher, and nobody should understand me outside the context of this gathering. Tomorrow you may meet me, I begin to philosophize in another way. But in the...
So he changes.
No!
This position only for today.
Nor destroyed. And then came Einstein, who said that, well, okay, maybe you can't create matter or you can't create energy, but you can change one into the other. But the sum total of matter and energy remains the same, because you cannot have new matter or new energy or the sum of the two. So that if the sigma, if the sum total of reality is not changing, does that mean that there is no motion taking place? That there is no, what am I looking for? No kinesis? Or is everything stasis?
Okay, let me look at it from the argument of pre-Socratic philosophers. What was their interest? They were looking for the primordial stuff of the world. What is the world made of? And once they are able to discover it, then it means that everything evolves from that. Thales discovered water as the primordial stuff of the world, the only reality. Heraclitus, who was even talking about change, also identified fire as the primordial stuff, that fire can change anything. So there is this one thing that remains the same, that explains the world, that will make us to know that the world is not really changing if you understand the perspective of philosophers, of these philosophers. So if you are experiencing changes, they have told you that it's nothing other than illusion of the senses. You may be driving on highway and you look at the front, you are seeing water ahead of you, and that particular water is not water but nothing but mirage. So you will now get to the spot you thought there would be water, and you are not seeing anything. So what is changing? So there is no change in the world, but we can experience changes from senses, and we can't rely on the information of our senses. I'm looking at you, and if you ask me how am I seeing you, or what are the parts of my body I'm using to understand that you are someone sitting in front of me, my eyes, my two eyes. But in the essence of it, my two eyes cannot take you from where you are into my mind, because if my eyes perceive, the information must get to my mind for me to understand. And there is a dichotomy between the outside world and the mind. If you follow the argument of John Locke, what our eyes give to us is nothing but ideas. I'm saying, you are a human person, not that you are leaving your space, your seat to come to my mind for me to understand you. I'm using my eyes. And the same eyes can give me wrong information. So on that basis, if you understand the dichotomy between the outside world and the mind, you will discover that our eyes cannot furnish us. We can't acquire the real knowledge of the outside world. And that makes change to be the illusion of the senses, according to all the philosophers have mentioned. So nothing is really changing if we can take the time to unearth the primordial stuff, the one thing that explains existence, which is being for Parmenides
which is the word of form for Plato. Thank you.
So, inspired by Dr. Rotimi, we may not be able to change the human condition, but we can change the nature of the questions, different questions you can ask. Any other different question which would throw? Yes, yes, brother.
I would like to ask why some people decided to take off their human life. Is it because of our world is changing?
You want to ask whether the person is already predetermined to act in that way? I wouldn't say the world is changing because some people are taking lives of their fellow human beings. That has been in existence for long. It started with human life. So we have that potentiality to be murderer. So murder is not new. If you read the Bible very well, you will see different incidents of murder in the Bible. Because competition is also part of human condition. Jealousy is part of human condition. So extermination, to exterminate one another, war is part of human condition. We can't run away from it. In all of this, you will see that the person trying to take the life of another person is not doing anything new in this world. It is part of human condition. Somebody somewhere will kill another person. And you may even discover that if you interrogate the person, and the person will be saying, I didn't do it intentionally. Okay? Just for you to know that it is human condition to kill, and it is also human condition to save life. So nothing is changing. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Omasolo was talking about that sometimes every human have their own perception. Sometimes we can, maybe it is a mirage and we were thinking it is water. And also going back to Doctor, I forgot your name, about the thinking. He emphasized first about the thinking. So if human being, I can say with René Descartes that we are thinking being, or human is naturally a philosophy, or wherever human is, there's a philosophy. So why we have to build on other thinking product of other philosophers, like the one that we're talking about. We quoting many philosophers. When there are questions, we are quoting other philosophers. And we are the natural philosophers. We have our own thinking. So why we study other philosophy, or we build our philosophy on other philosophers, since we are a natural philosopher?
Okay. Your inspiration is strong.
It is part of human condition to extend. Because we are created as social human beings. So we must interact. We must be social. We must listen to others. We must believe what others will say, because we can't be talking to ourselves alone. If you want to call yourself a philosopher, so you want to do your philosophy by yourself, for yourself. Yes, everything about your philosophy. Let me just say that if philosophy is not connecting to the world, it's no longer philosophy. It's just a personal thinking. So as long as you want to do philosophy, you have to interact with people. You have to read what others have said, because it is it is part of our human condition to know what others have said. Maybe you are thinking about a particular concept, let's say democracy, and you want to philosophize on how best to govern a state. So you must read classical works in democracy so that by the time you are philosophizing, you will be contributing to knowledge. So that doesn't mean that your contribution to knowledge is outside of what is fated to happen. So you are just playing that role already designed or determined for you, and therefore your human condition remains the same, even though you are using the thoughts of others to augment your own thought. Philosophy is interconnectivity. It's not isolation. Okay? It's not an activity in isolation. Thank you.
I think before that question, I would like, very much Professor Bevaji to say a few words to us. Yes. We cannot simply miss his presence here. Yes. Thank you, Professor Bevaji. We are so much blessed by your presence.
I just want to say that I have enjoyed the presentations, especially from the two erudite scholars who have given us a very sumptuous presentation today. And also the memory of Dr. Maria Smith, who was honored at the beginning of the ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Thanks for it.
All right. Good afternoon.
Yeah, we have just two more questions. We have the paucity of time, so. Yeah.
Do I ask the two questions?
No, one question for you, one.
All right, so I guess my first and only question then will be, I don't know if this was dealt with earlier, but how do rapid technological and social changes reshape our understanding of what it means to be human?
Yes, we did kind of touch on that a little bit. And I do think that now, if we go back to the point that nothing changes, or if we go to the point that everything changes, or do we have the middle ground of some things stay the same and some things change, then it means that with technology and with the rapid change in technology, really and truly what's changing or what's not changing, the human condition is not changing as I understand it. I think, though, that the point our brother Espute raised about the potential that is already pre-existent in individuals when they're born, that the technology, we have the opportunity to use the technology to enhance how we interact with the world. And I think that's the point of view that I have in relation to this, that the technology is an opportunity for us to figure out how we make things, the circumstances and the conditions of people's lives better and different from what they are. So for example, take the situation with the hurricane now. In 1988, when we had Gilbert, for weeks, as an 18-year-old, I drank Red Stripe beer hot because there was no refrigerator, there was no water, there was nothing to clean the water, and I wanted water. So I couldn't get any water because we never used to have bottled water. So what did I drink? Red Stripe. No, Red Stripe. Coconuts were blown off. So something did change, right? So today, with Melissa, with solar, which has since been discovered, which meant that the potential in someone changed to create the kind of solar that we have. With bottled water, with Starlink, we can still stay in touch, drink some water, maybe a little cool water. So something has changed. Something has changed. Between then and now, something has changed. So I do think technology offers us the opportunity to make some changes in the circumstances and the condition. And as I said, I'm an educator. If I didn't believe in change, and particularly in changing the potential of humans, I wouldn't belong in the field.
So here we have the last question, and please go ahead. Yeah, thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm with some bags on my legs, so I couldn't stand up. I've been listening before coming to join physically. I've been online, so before coming to here physically. So I've been listening to my dean and Dr. Mosulu, and to us in education. We play with, both, because as Dr. Mosulu rightly said, everything come about asking question. And when you ask question, you are trying in one way or the other at your own level, philosophizing. And with his position about nothing changed, and my dean to say something changed, because I'm in education, I'm in planning, and I know that we don't stay on the assumption of nothing changed, because we believe that with the right atmosphere, with the right conditioning, with the right resources, human relation and interaction, something can change for the better. That is the belief, because without change, I don't think any of us standing here will be here, because if I have the potential, I don't need to go to school. I don't need to be schooled. I don't need to go further, because I have that potential in me that I am going to become a teacher. I'm going to teach persons, but how do I become a teacher if somebody have not input that in me and changed my orientation? So my question is, because I wrote it down before coming here, can the philosophical concept of realism or truth remain stable in this world that is characterized by continuous cultural and social changes?
Philosophical concept of truth, right? Yeah. Number one, I would say that truth is eternal. If truth is eternal, it means that there is no condition that will make truth to become falsehood. From that angle, some scholars may say culture is dynamic. They will say, yes, we are subject to change. But what is it that we are searching for in philosophy for us to come to realization that nothing changes is the essence of being. What is that thing that defines you? You can do everything. You can change behavior, trying to be who you are not, which is inauthenticity. You can decide to be inauthentic in your interaction with others, but there is something that defines you, that will make you to come back to your real being. It is because we must transcend true reason. Let me just answer it simply. True reason. What is reason? Reason is, should I say it elastic or inelastic? Reason
remains the only thing that you can use to discover the world. And if you are not doing an exercise in reason, then you will be confused by the will of the senses. And that is what philosophers of being are saying, that if you don't key into that sphere of philosophy, you will be seeing changes as reality. But in the real sense of it, nothing changes. Culture is culture, religion is religion, environment is environment, and family life is family life. We can only appropriate it individually, but the essence of family, the essence of religion, the essence of culture remains the same. And that is why philosophy say nothing changes. Thank you.
So friends, as you know, I'm in a very difficult situation to conclude, which maybe I can take the inspiration from Leibniz, and Roti will be very happy. You know, Leibniz, of course, speaks of monads, and every monad represents the whole universe. Very interestingly adds, in its own way. He doesn't stop the monads represent the entire universe, but in its own way. So going to the example of Roti, that every monad is kind of a house, but he is speaking about a windowless house. But in our times, I told you philosophy questions are same, but the context in which we approach the questions are going to be very different, and it is context specific. And therefore, I think we need to think of the monads' windowless house as full of windows in our times, because conversation is taking place, and then we are being by becoming. This is what the original position of Professor Dean, we are being by becoming, which means there is something of constancy. At the same time, we are constant precisely because we are also moving. It's kind of a rhythm, you know. It is neither totally running nor static. It is kind of, we discover ourselves in the relationship, you know. Reality is neither one, because obviously there is multiplicity. At the same time, everything in the multiple world is related to something that we find ourselves in relation. So reality is neither one nor many, but it is basically a relation. And if this conversation helped us to converse a little bit more, and we are more united in our common questions and in our searching than in our final answers, okay? So, and philosophy is all about not the final full stop, but it is all about questioning and being in the process. So with these words, I join. Word of thanks is there, okay, Kimaka? I invite Kimaka to give the word of thanks. And I thank the distinguished speakers for eliciting such interesting conversation among the youngsters. Thank you so much, and it's a joy and privilege to be seated among you. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy in the Faculty of Humanities and Education here at the University of the West Indies Mona campus, I would like to thank all of you for joining us today to celebrate UNESCO World Philosophy Day 2025 under the theme, The Human Condition in a Changing World. So I would like to thank our event chair, Dr. Janice Smith, for gracefully bringing us through the first half of the program. Thank you to our head of department, Dr. Vivette Milson-White, for giving her warm welcome and also warming us up to the ideas that we would reflect on throughout the event. Thank you to our dean, Dr. Dion Edwards Kerr, and for playing her role in both giving us the remark and for also being or giving us a talk. And there are some things in the dean's talk that really stood out, and I want us to reflect on those things. So the one thing that the dean mentioned that stood out was this idea of there being a tension between the idea of I am and the tension of who I aspire to become. And I thought about what if that aspiration is more deconstructive. Like I want to get rid of this need to become more than just who I am, a being. How would that affect our understanding of what it means to be human? And the other thing that stood out was the idea of the earth generating purpose for us as human beings. So those are two things that I thought that came from the dean's talks that I think it's worthy for us to reflect on. Thank you to the head of the philosophy section, or the philosophy section coordinator, Dr. Rotimi Omosulu, for giving us the remarks and for also his discussion today, his presentation today. And what stood out with Dr. Omosulu's presentation, apart from the permanence of, or the unchanging nature of the human condition, is I thought that, or he made a remark that that philosophy encourages us to think outside the box, And I thought, well, we can also think outside the box. And what if we go beyond the idea of thinking outside the box as well as inside the box? And we think about whether we can think outside and in the box at the same time. Or we could also get rid of the box entirely. So thank you, Dr. Masulu, for sharing your ideas with us today. Thank you to Mr. Everton Hannum, Secretary General of the Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO, who spoke to us about dialectics and scientific communism, which he was exposed to in his studies in Cuba. Thank you to Reverend Peter Espute, Dean of Studies of St. Michael's College, who gave the tribute to the late Dr. Maria Smith, who was very supportive of this event. She was always here for the past few years. And we really thank you, Dr. Espute, for giving that tribute to Dr. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Matthew Fairweather Gilling, for your song on Melissa. And I think we need a recorded version of that and we're also hired to create a song for our World Quality Week next year. And thank you to Dr. Anthony Lodesarmi for introducing our speakers. Thank you to the MITS team for providing technical support. Thank you to the admin staff in the Department of Language, Linguistics, and Philosophy who worked behind the scene, Mr. Ezeni, and our event coordinator, Mr. Simeon Mohansing. Thank you very much for organizing this event, which brought us all together here. And to all of you, our audience here in the room, as well as our audience online, thank you so much for coming here and celebrating World Philosophy Day 2025 with us. One announcement, at 2 o'clock, we will be having a tree planting that is going to take place by the Gandhi statue. And you're all invited to join us for that tree planting. And there's also refreshments provided for you. So thank you once again, and see you next year.